Hello Canadians, I'm your mentor Bhakta Bhatti, CEO Pays. In this video, I'm going to discuss basics of GST and HST as applicable to Canada. Here's a disclaimer that it's only for educational purposes, but anyway, for any specific advice, you can always contact us at 289-952-3494, else you can send us email at paisgst@2017gmail.com. Here's the scheme of presentation. First of all, we'll look into what is GST and HST. We'll differentiate the two terms, and then we'll see who pays and collects GST and HST in Canada. And in the final segment, I'll explain to you the difference between taxable, zero-rated, and exempt supplies. So what is GST and HST? Let's move forward. GST, Goods and Services Tax, is applicable to the supply of goods and services in Canada. And of course, these goods and services will also include real property as well as intangible personal property. So briefly speaking, the supply of all goods and services may be the subject of GST in Canada, but there are a few exceptions that we'll look into later. Now, what is Harmonized Sales Tax or HST? Basically, the federal component of GST and the provincial component of GST, when these two are merged, we come up with a new concept of harmonized sales tax that is in fact sales tax, but it has both the federal as well as the provincial component. So the participating provinces may club their PST into GST, and then collectively it will be called HST. So whether it is HST or GST, it will be applicable to the same base of property, whether goods and services. Now the question is, who pays GST and HST? As you can see, this would include consumers, producers, business persons, not-for-profit organizations, and so on. But one important point that you need to keep in mind is that since GST or HST is a consumer tax, so it has to be borne by the consumers ultimately. Why? Because producers, business persons, not-for-profit organizations, and these organizations who are registered with CRA, they are entitled to reclaim the part of GST or HST that they have paid on their imports or purchases. Now, who charges the GST and HST? Of course, all businesses who are registered with CRA for this purpose are under the law bound to charge GST and HST on the supply of goods and services. Now, this may include taxable and zero-rated supplies. And second important thing is that the person or the organization should not be a small supplier. So who is a small supplier? Small supplier is any organization whose total supplies during one quarter during the past 4 quarters are equal to or less than 30,000 Canadian dollars. In case of public service bodies, this limit is $50,000. Or else, for charities and public institutions, the threshold level is gross revenue should be equal to or less than $250,000 in a year. So, I mean, if somebody is a small supplier, they are not required to get themselves registered for GST, HST. Otherwise, all other business organizations have to get registration with CRA. Now, what are taxable supplies? The basic point that you need to keep in mind is that for taxable supplies, the input tax credit or ITC as we call it can be claimed by a GST, HST register. So it means if you have paid some of the HST or GST on your goods and services procurements, then you are entitled to deduct that amount of HST from the amount of HST that you have charged on your supplies, and you're going to remit the net amount to the CRA. An example of taxable supplies may include sales of new housing, sales and rentals of commercial real property, and sales and lease of automobiles, etc. Now, there's another category that is called zero-rated supplies. In this case, the input tax credit can also be claimed by a GST, HST register. And the only difference between standard rated and zero-rated supplies is that when you supply these goods and services, I mean zero-rated supplies, the HST charged by you is equal to 0%, but still they fall within the ambit of HST law, so you are allowed to claim your ITC. Examples of zero-rate supplies may include basic groceries such as milk, bread, and vegetables, agriculture products such as grain, raw wool, dried tobacco leaves, and exports. Regarding exports, the point is important because when you are exporting, it would be beneficial for Canadian economy. So it is an incentive to the exporters that in case of all goods and services that may be the subject of standard rate HST within Canada, once they are exported abroad, then it's only zero rated. So it means you don't have to charge any HST on it so that your prices remain competitive in the international market. Now, what are exempt supplies? In case of exempt supplies, since they do not fall within the ambit of HST law, so ITC cannot be claimed by a registered GST HST for this purpose. So purely from financial perspective, in certain situations, this may lead to reduction of profits on your part. Now, examples of exempt supplies include most domestic free services, legal aid services, many educational services, music lessons, etc. Now, I conclude my video. For accounting, tax, and business management services, you can always send us email at paisgst2017@gmail.com, or else you can call us at 289-952-3494, or you may like to visit our website at paisgst.com. Thank you for watching this video.